The fantasy season is finally upon us. Week 1 of the NFL season is upcoming this Thursday. So here are the top 20 running backs for this week in fantasy football. All right, up first, we have none other than Saquon Barkley. Barkley playing against the Dallas Cowboys this week. Coming off of a Super Bowl win, over 400 touches last year for him. He's just going to continue to be dominant. I don't care about the Madden curse. I don't care about any volume decrease for Saquon that everybody's expecting. Any carries that might go to Will Shipley. I don't care. Dallas was horrible last year versus the run, 29th overall. Saquon is going to continue to be dominant. There's no if, and, or but about it. Is the easiest pick in all of fantasy football. He's going at the 101 here. All right, up next, we have Jahmyr Gibbs at 2, and Jahmyr Gibbs, I feel, has one of the safest floors and the highest ceilings in all of NFL, especially in the running back room. I think that Detroit is going to run their offense primarily through Jahmyr Gibbs, and I think that this game is going to get out of hand much faster than people expect. I understand this is a divisional game, but I still don't think the Packers are quite on the same level that the Detroit Lions are. And I think that once Detroit finally starts to pull away, Gibbs is going to feast on carries and receptions especially, and he will be the focal point of this offense going into this game. It's an easy pick at 2. He deserves to be up there. Number 2, Jahmyr Gibbs. Up next, at number 3, we have Christian McCaffrey, who is going up against the Seattle Seahawks, a young and upcoming defense who they're fairly good. However, Christian McCaffrey, when he does play and he is healthy, is one of the best, if not the best, fantasy producers in all of football. Christian McCaffrey, with Brock Purdy, in the 27 games that they played together, have scored 28 total touchdowns. He has a total of 3,200 all-purpose yards and 115 catches. This offense runs through CMC. They're dealing with a ton of injuries in the receiving room. Brandon Ayuk in particular, also guys like Jacob Cowling are dealing with injury. Juwan Jennings is dealing with his own issues, including a contract situation. So you really only have Ricky Pearsall and George Kittle in this offense. And I think that when Christian McCaffrey is cooking on all cylinders and he's healthy, he is the best in the game. He undoubtedly is number 3. Up next, at number 4, we have Derrick Henry, who just turned 31 this year, but I don't really care about his age. He is in the number 1 rush offense in the Baltimore Ravens, and he's going to continue to produce. You can say that he's going to fall off a cliff all you want, but he's not going to, and he just hasn't shown any signs of doing so. He last year ran for 199 yards, 2 touchdowns, and got 3 receptions on top of that versus Buffalo. Buffalo didn't do anything crazy in this offseason. They kind of upgraded their defensive line, but these are rookies, and apart from that, it's just not looking too great. I think that Derrick Henry is going to continue to feast on the Buffalo defensive line, and he is going to go off minimum 100 yards, touchdown. He's looking at 20-plus points floor. I feel like he is going to feast this upcoming week. And rounding out my S tier at number 5, we have De'Von Achane. He is absolutely phenomenal when he's healthy. This is assuming that he is healthy. With Tua, he absolutely cooks. He has 22 games, 1,400 rushing yards, 700 receiving yards, a total of 22 touchdowns, 94 catches. He is a fantasy monster when Tua plays. Tua is healthy. He's going to get those dump down passes. He's going to get to run the ball a lot. He has no real competition in the backfield. Jalen Wright is now hurt, and his competition is Ollie Gordon, who's not going to immediately take over tons of opportunity from De'Von Achane, especially him being healthy. So I see him absolutely cooking the Indianapolis Colts, who last year ranked 24th versus the run. De'Von Achane, S tier play this year. He's going to absolutely feast. Up next, starting off the A tier, we have Chase Brown at number 6, and this is entirely because Cleveland is horrible. We saw what happened in the preseason with Chase Brown. He's utilized heavily in that Bengals offense. This is going to be a very good Bengals offense this year, and I think that they're going to start off strong this year, unlike last year, versus a very, very bad Cleveland team who is going to struggle greatly on offense, even against the Bengals junior varsity defense that they seem to carry around every year. this is just going to be one of those situations where I feel like the Bengals are going to run away with it, and Chase Brown is going to get quite a workload. He's going to get some dump down passes. He's going to get that rushing game. He doesn't have a backup who's going to take a large chunk of carries like he did Zach Moss last year. He's going to cook this year. Number 6, Chase Brown. Up next at number 7, we have Bijan Robinson, who fell a number of ranks for me this upcoming week, and that has to do with the issues that are happening with their offensive line. Jewel Dalman left in free agency. Caleb McGarry lost for the season to IR, and Storm Norton also lost for the next couple of weeks. This offensive line is already in shambles, and the season hasn't even started yet. I don't see Bijan being super successful this week against Tampa Bay. Statistically, in the 3 full games that he's played, he's amassed 161 rushing yards, 113 reception yards, and a total of 2 touchdowns. He is good enough to be in that starting lineup, and he should always be in that starting lineup. However, I feel more confident in the picks mentioned before him than him this week versus Tampa Bay. Up next at number 8, we have Ashton Gianti, and I absolutely love this matchup. I don't love the Raiders. I don't love Ashton Gianti's situation exactly, but I do love this matchup versus the Patriots. Patriots 23rd versus the run last year in 2024. This is going to be a brand new rushing attack for the Las Vegas Raiders. This is a Chip Kelly offense that utilizes RPOs and inside runs. They are going to maximize Ashton Gianti's efficiency, including using 2 tight end sets, which should expand that running game even more so. On top of that, he is sought to have a ton of targets as well as carries in this offense. He's going to absolutely feast. He should be started in all formats. Up next at number 9, we have Jonathan Taylor, and I'm not going to lie to you, there's a lot of concern here for Jonathan Taylor and the Indianapolis Colts. Daniel Jones just got announced as their starting quarterback, and obviously that leads to a lot of major concerns in that wide receiver room for fantasy purposes, but Jonathan Taylor is different. I feel like he has the best opportunity here for the Colts to be a fantasy producer, and he is looking to pick up right where he left off last year after he came back from injury from the previous year. He finished with 3 top 5 finishes, and I'm not too concerned about the injury history up to this point. He is going to be a bounce back candidate despite not catching the ball too much, having less than 20 catches over the last 3 years. I still expect him to be a good fantasy producer. He is a pure runner, and he's going to produce in this Colts offense. Somebody has to. Up next, at number 10 to round out the A tier, we have Bucky Irving. Bucky Irving is going to be a fantasy beast this year, and it's all going to start from week 1. Last year, Bucky Irving, in the games that he played, averaged 127.3 yards per game when he was the primary backfield handler, and he is going to continue to produce. 3.9 yards after contact last season was really, really good at forcing missed tackles, and he is just going to get a lot of work out of the backfield, and in this first team offense, he is going to produce. The Buccaneers obviously dealing with a bunch of wide receiver injuries. Chris Godwin from last year being hurt. Jalen McMillan recently ended up on IR too. And this just leads to ample opportunity for Bucky Irving. Tough divisional matchup. I expect a lot of pass catching out of the backfield. He should get quite a number of catches. Up next, to start off B tier, at number 11, we have James Conner, who finds himself in a very favorable matchup this week versus the New Orleans Saints, who gave up the second most rush yards versus the run last year. And I expect the Saints to completely get blown out here. It's not anything about the Cardinals being that great of an offense, but it's more about the Saints fighting for the number 1 pick this year. They are just going to be absolutely horrible. Spencer Rattler is not going to get it done this week versus the Cardinals. I think that they're going to run away with it early, and James Conner is going to be the benefactor, especially with no real competition. Trey Benson, I'm not trusting. He's going to feast this week, and I think that he's going to benefit from a lot of playing from ahead. Up next, at number 12, we have Kyren Williams, who is going to continue to be the workhorse back in this offense. Matthew Stafford's currently dealing with an injury which could affect the wide receivers in this offense, Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams. And I think that because of that, they're going to lean a lot more on Kyren here. He has back-to-back finishes of RB8 or better, and he is going to continue just to produce. The Rams did draft Hunter this year and Corum last year, but they're not going to take over any carries from Kyren Williams. He is set to just continue to feast. He has a decent matchup this week against an offense that's dealing with a lot of injuries, so I think there are going to be plenty of opportunities for the Rams to get the ball back and run the ball, and Kyren Williams will be at the forefront of that. Up next, at number 13, we have Alvin Kamara, who finds himself in a bad situation in New Orleans. However, he is the best in a bad situation. This is going to be a game where I feel like New Orleans is going to be completely outmatched. Arizona is not great. However, they should dominate this ball game, and that should lead to some Kamara receptions. Kamara being a guy who is significantly undervalued in all aspects of drafting this year, just because he has not reached 1,000 rushing yards in any one single season of his career. He is still averaging over 100 yards per scrimmage, yards from scrimmage per game throughout his entire career with Rattler. His floor has been 37, 38 receiving yards, 32 rushing yards, 4-5 receptions per game. If 12 is the absolute floor that I know that I'm good for with Rattler being the quarterback with Kamara, I'm perfectly fine with starting him above all of these other guys, because I do feel like his ceiling is much, much higher than that. Up next, at number 14, we have Chuba Hubbard, who finds himself going up against the Jacksonville Jaguars, who obviously did not have a great team last year, 25th versus the run. They were very, very bad. Chuba Hubbard found himself being the primary ball handler last year, originally meant to be sharing carries with Miles Sanders, and he just kind of exploded out of nowhere. So Chuba Hubbard falling back into that number one role this year, 4-year, $33 million extension, despite the fact that Rico Dowdle was added in the offseason. This is Chuba's backfield to lose, and I think that in a game against Jacksonville, where their rush defense is just not entirely that great, I think that Chuba is going to get a lot of work here. He is going to get a lot of pass catches, and he's in a favorable matchup. This should be a game that Carolina keeps fairly close, and I think that Chuba is going to benefit from it. Up next, at number 15, rounding out the B tier, we have Josh Jacobs, who finds himself in a difficult matchup against the Detroit Lions. This is going to be a game, I feel like, where the Packers are going to get absolutely destroyed. The Lions are going to run away with it, and I don't think that that's going to benefit Josh Jacobs, who usually gains a majority of his yardage off of carries. I don't think that this is going to be a matchup where he's going to succeed. The Lions defense looks healthy, they look stronger, and I do think that it's going to be very easy for them to block up this run game. On top of that, the Packers are dealing with injuries in the offense, primarily at wide receiver. I don't think that they're going to click on all cylinders. It's going to be a rough game for the Packers. They do want to throw the ball more as well, and I don't feel like that benefits Jacobs here. Long term, I believe in Jacobs. I think he's going to have a very successful season. I just don't believe in this matchup. Up next, at number 16, to start off the C tier, we have Kenneth Walker, who's going up against the San Francisco 49ers, and this is entirely having to do with my question marks, especially with his injury history and his concern. This is a guy who is top 10 with a very high upside. You know, he potentially could be that breakout candidate this year for fantasy football. He is leading the league in forced missed tackles. He is top 10 in yards after contact. He's absolutely insane when it comes to actually playing, but he doesn't play all that much, dealing with so many injuries over the last couple of years. I think that this matchup is a very interesting one for him. Divisional matchups are always very difficult, and I do think that Saleh is going to bring up the intensity on defense against the Seahawks. I think that there are just a few too many question marks with how new the Seahawks roster is and what they're going to try to accomplish when it comes to their offensive ability. I don't want really to put Kenneth Walker above these other guys who I know what I'm going to get from them, but I do think that Kenneth Walker has a lot of value upside here. Up next at number 17, rounding out the C tier, we have Tony Pollard. And Tony Pollard was a lot lower on my rankings prior to Tyjae Spears getting hurt, but Tyjae Spears is now on the physically unable to perform list on IR. He is out, and Tony Pollard is going to get a lot of work in this offense. The Tennessee Titans refurbished their entire offensive line. He's going to see a lot of work. The pass volume here should be increased, and I think that's also going to benefit Tony Pollard. I don't expect them to be able to keep up with Denver, but I do expect them to try and find some sort of rhythm, see what works, see what doesn't, and I think a lot of that is going to have to do with Cam Ward's ability to read defenses and maybe dump the ball off once or twice, handful of times maybe to Tony Pollard. And I think that he's going to benefit very much so from that. And that's what keeps him right here at the C tier above two of my other guys who I don't feel as strongly about and I have a ton more question marks about. I think he's worth a start, especially at the flex position if you need an upside play here. Up next at number 18, going into the D tier, we have James Cook. And this is a very difficult matchup for the Buffalo Bills going up against the Baltimore Ravens, a matchup that many view could be the AFC Championship this upcoming year. I think that James Cook is set to have a touchdown regression, and this is just going to be the Josh Allen show. I think he's going to have to take over and use his legs, use his ability in order for the Bills to win this matchup. And James Cook doesn't have a great history when it comes to snap count, only over 60% once last year. He's losing carries to Ray Davis. This isn't a perfect matchup for him. I would much rather have the guys that are mentioned ahead of him who I feel more confident in their role and I feel like are going to have a much bigger impact in their game. James Cook falls into that D tier. He's not quite as bad as the other guys who come after him, but he's just not quite where I want him to be, which is why he's in D tier. Up next at number 19, we have Breece Hall going up against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Steelers have a very stout defense. Just overall, I don't see this being a very favorable matchup for the New York Jets or Breece Hall. And he comes with a lot of question marks. Braylon Allen is a concern, getting goal line carries and potentially stealing touchdowns. Justin Fields is a concern. He's not going to dish the ball out to his running back as often as Aaron Rodgers did. But I do think that the Jets believe that Breece Hall is the future of this offense, and I do think that they are going to continue to give him opportunities to succeed. Breece Hall has the volume. He has the athleticism. He has all of the capabilities in the world to bring this all together. He just needs, a team to do it behind. I don't think that this is going to be a very good matchup for him, but I do like him here a lot better than some of the other matchups. And last but not least, rounding out number 20, we have old man Aaron Jones. He finds himself in a very good matchup against the Chicago Bears. Obviously, Aaron Jones, we know, cooks the Chicago Bears. Last season, he finished with 18.4 and 17.6 fantasy points in respective games, one touchdown in each of the games, and finished as RB7 and RB8. He just cooks the Chicago Bears. It's just bound to happen. This Minnesota defense is absolutely stellar. He is going to find a ton of opportunities. It doesn't really matter to me that Jordan Mason is there because I do think that Aaron Jones has continued to get a majority of the work. And I do think that the Vikings are absolutely going to feast on this Bears team. Aaron Jones is just going to be the benefactor for it. So that's why he finds himself ahead of some of the other guys. There are some concerns because he can't seem to not only play a game, but finish a game. So Aaron Jones finding himself at 20 purely based off of the matchup. I think that he has a lot better matchup than a lot of the other guys. And I think that he has the potential to be a fringe top 10 running back in this matchup. But RB20, safe and sound for Aaron Jones. And that's going to be it for me, guys. If you guys like this video and you guys want to see more videos like it, make sure that you smash that like button, subscribe, comment if you're new here, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.